Part 83. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 830. Huang Hongsheng said 110 million according to their estimated limit, and the three of them couldn't pick one Lu Feng? They don't believe it. Lu Feng stood there with an ashen face, giving Huang Hongsheng the feeling that this number was stuck in the most uncomfortable position for him. What's the matter, Mr. Lu, isn't it awesome? Keep shouting, come on, call 200 million for everyone. Li Dongsheng took a puff of cigarette and teased, if you want to call 200 million, we will definitely not follow you. If you have money, you are arrogant. Mayor, yeah, why don't we talk in the afternoon? Lu Feng's voice was no longer arrogant. What bullshit to talk about in the afternoon? Right now we are competing for this contract, 110 million, if you have money, you will call, if you have no money, you will hum off. Huang Hongsheng said to Lu Feng, GFN Electronics is poor, even 30 to 50 million yuan. Can't afford it? Otherwise, you call me Lord, and I'll give you 5 million. Yeah, this deal is much more cost effective. If you want an extra 5 million, you can let me slap both of you, Chen Weirong said solemnly. Lu Feng stood there with a gloomy expression, without saying a word, staring at Magistrate Ye, as if he was the only one who could get Lu Feng off the stage at this moment. Magistrate Ye doesn't dare to look up now, for fear of laughing out loud and smoking a cigarette, thinking about how many roads can be paved with 110 million yuan, how many industries can be added, and how much money can be spent directly. The county's economy was revitalized. I promised Huang Hongsheng a few people, so much money is enough. As for winning all of them, it seems unlikely. I still focus on the county, Mr. Lu, you can't blame me, I have done my best, and called you in advance. The county magistrate Yes still had a chance of survival, raised his head and glanced at Lu Feng, and sighed, quite helpless. Ha 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 ha. When Huang Hongsheng heard this, he immediately laughed. There is probably no one in this world more stupid than Lu Feng. He wanted to show off in front of them, but he ended up like this. Let me tell you, starting from today, the TV industry will gradually no longer have the market for VIPTA. No matter how arrogant you are today, one day, we will take every branch of GFN Electronics, one knife at a time. Cut it off. Huang Hongsheng stood up, walked in front of Lu Feng, and asked Lu Feng, are you still arrogant? Lu Feng looked at him, his whole body was unspeakable, his face turned red, his fists were clenched, his throat kept twitching. He took a deep breath and said, can I apologize to you? The contract is really important to WEPTA, can we do it together? Ha ha ha, you also have today. Li Dongsheng laughed loudly. Lu Feng, you also have today? I tell you, there is no way, and after the Northern Economic Development Zone is announced, you have no way. I've been looking at you for a long time. I used to think that you were young and didn't have the same knowledge as you. Were you very proud of your overseas trade agency last year? Huang Hongsheng stared at Lu Feng and said, your overseas trade this year is different. Well. Lu Feng looked embarrassed. He stood there, hunched slightly, his eyes were full of urgency, and he looked like he was about to cry, and said, can I buy shares? I'll pay more. Sorry. It's late. After Mr. Huang finished speaking, he looked at the county magistrate and said, 110 million, they don't add any more, how about we eat after the contract is drawn up? The legal teams of our three companies are all there. Let's discuss it, it shouldn't take long time. At this point, Magistrate Ye couldn't say anything, so he could only agree, stood up and said, then let's go this way. Mr. Niu stood up and walked in front of Lu Feng, sneered at his annoyed look at the moment, and spat a mouthful of phlegm on the ground. Pooh! Lu Feng's tears kept swirling in his eyes. When the phlegm went down, he seemed to be greatly insulted, and he couldn't bear it any longer. What about you, what's the matter, Mr. Niu shouted with a finger to Lu Feng's face, "If you can't get the contract, you're a waste. If you don't have money, you're a waste. No matter how big a company is, it will fall one day. I warn you, you'd better leave as soon as possible, or something will happen, I don't know." Everyone stood at the door and looked back in unison. It didn't matter that Lu Feng and Huang Hongsheng were arguing. They had similar identities, but being insulted by a township boss like Mr. Niu was a huge humiliation. Huang Hongsheng laughed twice, the joy he couldn't describe today. Nothing was more comfortable than knocking down a person's arrogance. Lu Feng didn't come here this time to let Weaputa overtake at the corner. Zhang Lang, who had been buzzing some time ago, was exhausted, but he didn't expect it to be staged here. If there is no money, there are all kinds of plans, and all kinds of plans are useless. In the end, they still need money, and they are about to usher in Shenzhen in the north. Mr. Huang and several others also thought very clearly. The county magistrate said that money cannot leave the county within 5 years. When the Northern Economic Development Zone announced to the public, the pace of the country's construction will come quickly, and they will take a large piece of land first. Then they took over the project, and they didn't do it. They directly outsourced and recovered the funds quickly. In the end, I have to go back to the electronics industry and invest in building a large-scale factory locally. In this way, the money is spent, and the production can keep up. The three of them can be considered to have completely gone out of the south, and then don't say a whippeta. Is Changhong, they all want to wrestle their arms. Lu Feng's eyes were full of loneliness, and his eyes were red. Through the turbid glass, he saw them chatting happily in the sky, while he sat on the bench, grinning. The county magistrate had a pleasant chat with Huang Hongsheng and a few others. The contracts in the county have been prepared, and the specific terms have changed a lot after all. These people are not fools. They are concerned with the supervision of funds, the storage and sales of products, etc. have put forward restrictions and requirements. For the county, as long as the money stays here, you can write whatever you want. Anyway, you can't run away from the meat of your mouth. After signing the contract at one point, Huang Hongsheng held the hand of the magistrate and said very politely that both the goods and the money would be in place as soon as possible. Now that the contracts of these people have been signed, they have already entered the net, and the county magistrate is no longer so interested, and arranged for them to go to the restaurant first, and then he will come later. What you can't get is always in turmoil. For the county magistrate, Lu Feng is the biggest fish. If you don't get it in, it will be too imperfect. Magistrate had just ordered people to stare at Lu Feng and told him not to leave. When he came over, he found Lu Feng sitting alone in the conference room, and hurriedly said with a smile, "Mr. Lu, don't be too disappointed, it's time to eat." "Well, I haven't eaten yet." Lu Feng looked up at him and said, "I was going to eat just now, but someone told me that you won't let me go. I have something to do with you. I am a person, everything is good, but soft-hearted. What they said just now is really inappropriate, I can feel it. GFN Electronics really wants to come, my first target is you. You have seen the situation just now." Magistrate sat down and sighed, "I can't help it either." "It's okay, I can understand you." Lu Feng nodded and said, "I have nothing else to do, I'll go back first." "Wait a minute." Magistrate looked solemn, as if he had made a decision that went against his ancestors just now, and said to Lu Feng, "I am really optimistic about you, I can open a back door for you, but what? You can't go out and say that when the Economic Development Zone is officially announced to the public, you will say that you are the second batch of contracts signed, but the treatment of GFN Electronics is the same as those of those companies. You don't need to say thank you. Just work hard, I'll be fine." Lu Feng stood up and walked away. He was stunned by his sudden remarks. He knew that this thing was fake. If he didn't know, he would be moved to tears, kneeling down to thank him. "Great grace. It's not good. Lu Feng looked at him with a slightly embarrassed expression. Thank you anyway, it's illegal to do this. Oh, why are you so rigid? You don't say it, I don't say it, who knows, magistrate with an unusual relationship between you and me, smiled and said, I don't ask you either. Whatever you do, as long as you actually do business and aim to revitalize the industry, I will be very happy and satisfied. This is really inappropriate. Lu Feng still shied away. Magistrate originally thought that he would do him a favor. With Lu Feng's state of regret, he would definitely be grateful, but he did not expect such a result. What's inappropriate? I'm giving you a chance. But I'm useless, I'm a waste, I'm sorry, this incident hit me hard, I feel like my soul is traumatized. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said, I want to find a quiet place. A place to recuperate. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he went out, and the county magistrate hurriedly said, Mr. Lu, it's fine to have less product and margin. It won't put you under that much pressure. The two items can add up to 100 million. Lu Feng also waved his hands. 80 million. 60 million. No, how about 40 million? Seeing Lu Feng walking away, the county magistrate felt something vaguely in his heart, but that feeling was not real. Fish slipping through the net. Magistrate sighed, and he can only ignore him for now. The most important thing at the moment is to take back the money and TV set in the contract as soon as possible, and control it under his own hands is the most secure. When Lu Feng returned to the hotel, Zhu Lidong had already left. He felt that it was a bit unsafe to live here, so he changed another hotel and booked a flight to Renhua tomorrow. Today is definitely a good day for Huang Hongsheng and everyone. They can't stop smiling when they eat. Life is like this. Bullying him can make him happy for a long time. Ge Quanshun is also hurrying to deliver the goods. After everything is in order, he will start marketing around the name of the Northern Economic Development Zone, and strive to sell all the shares of the Panda factory by this time next year. It's just that he doesn't know yet that the old hunter who has played with the eagle all his life, was pecked in the eye by the eagle this time, and finally accompanies the panda to hide in the depths of the times. HTT. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 831. There is only one flight to Wanrenhua's side a day, but today it's gone, and Lu Feng has set it for tomorrow. Today is definitely a happy day for Huang Hongsheng and Ge Quanshun. Lu Feng originally aimed at them, but they made a lot of money. As soon as the contract was signed, everyone felt relieved. After fighting with Lu Feng for all these years, they finally won once, which is gratifying. Magistrate touched the glass with everyone at the dinner table, and he kept urging them to execute the contract as soon as possible. Huang Hongsheng drank a little too much and wanted to call Lu Feng to make a good joke about him, but when he called, he said that Lu Feng had already checked out. He Zi is also looking for Lu Feng. He has been in contact with Lu Feng since this morning. No matter what, this matter is because of him getting up. In the eyes of He Zi, Lu is always a generous person, and it is impossible to ignore it. As a result, he couldn't find where Lu Feng was all day and night. He seemed to have offended a boss who might stay here for the rest of his life because of someone who might disappear at any time. This month in the electronics industry has been relatively stable, and there is nothing to be a demon. For many practitioners, it is too strange. Not to mention that Lu Feng has been terribly quiet this month. The key is that other companies have not acted as demons. Before Lu Feng came to this industry, there were constant criticisms among the major manufacturers. After Lu Feng came, it became even more lively. In the industry, they began to talk to each other on the phone, and asked what Lu Feng was busy with. When people inquired, they knew that not only Lu Feng was not in Shenzhen, but Huang Hongsheng and Chen Weirong were not there. This time, it seemed that something extraordinary had been discovered, which was spread by word of mouth in the industry, but Lu Feng couldn't care less about it. He boarded the plane and rushed to the next destination to finish the matter as soon as possible. Chengdu, Changhong Group's general manager's office, a man in his 30s knocked on the door, no one responded, and knocked on the door of the deputy general manager's office next to him. "What's wrong?" the vice president raised his head and wondered. "There is a story circulating in the industry today that Lu Feng and Huang Hongsheng have all gone to a county in Shaanxi." Going to a county, he frowned and asked, "What are you going to do?" "I heard that it is to create a northern economic development zone." The vice president's head was stunned. They had never heard of such a big thing. If it was taken first by those companies, it would be troublesome. Because it was a state-owned enterprise, I asked the province first if there were any. There is no news in this regard, and the result is that the province does not know. The whole industry is spreading rumors about the economic development zone. As a result, the leaders of various provinces are very depressed. They have never heard of this matter. It seems that the rumors appeared out of nowhere. Some leaders are even muttering to themselves, "Are they not qualified to know about this?" Zhu Lidong has already led the team to contact the local county government. The other party is very interested in this matter. He can get a good reputation without doing anything. Isn't this a slap in the face? Lu Feng got into the car from the airport and chatted a lot with Zhu Lidong along the way. A banner was pulled up at the entrance of the county government, which read, "Warmly welcome Mr. Lu Feng, chairman of GFN Electronics Group, to Renhua County." The county magistrate and more than a dozen deputy magistrates all met at the door. The scene was absolutely solemn. When Lu Feng got off the bus, he even set off a few firecrackers to show his welcome, as if his new daughter-in-law got off the bus. "Hello, hello," Lu Feng stepped forward and held the hand of a man in his 40s politely. "I'm Lu Feng, chairman of GFN Electronics Group." "Welcome Mr. Lu to Renhua, Gizhu." "I'm the county magistrate, Li Quanhong. Do you smoke?" the magistrate Li asked politely. No, let me introduce these few people. I'm here today to communicate with the county. I also talked a lot with Mr. Zhu on the road just now. The county still supports our work." Lu Feng said towards him. "Absolutely support it, but we don't sell Wipita TVs here." "It doesn't matter, we set up a monopoly point. This matter can be solved, as long as the people need it, then GFN is bound to do so," Lu Feng said very proudly. Mr. Lu's words are very good, and his consciousness is very high. "Please, the tea has been prepared." The county government compound is similar to Huiran's side. It is very dilapidated. There are several old stools in it. One of the more spacious rooms is on a concrete floor, and the rest are brick floors or cement floors. "Mr. Lu, smoke." As he spoke, 3 or 5 cigarettes flew over, and Lu Feng hurried to pick them up. The specific situation, Mr. Zhu has already told us, that is to use one of our names to sell a product in the county, and each TV will be subsidized by 200 or 300 yuan, right? Magistrate Li asked. Yes, why do I do this? Mainly because I was poor, and now that I have money, I want to give back to the society and do something good. This is also our original intention, Lu Feng said to the crowd. Mr. Lu, I was still saying yesterday that since it is in the name of the county to subsidize, can you put a sum of money here, and then the person who buys the TV will apply for it? It seems more real, otherwise it is ordinary, the common people don't believe it, a deputy county magistrate suggested. Yes, this is indeed a problem, it's like a promotion. Others joined in. Zhu Lidong whispered in Lu Feng's ear, Mr. Lu, it's the same wherever you go. These people all want to collect the security deposit. It's been a night since last night. I think it's too troublesome to put the money in the county and then return it to us. But what these people said makes sense. How about this? The county can issue a voucher, the voucher you stamped, we also stamp it, Everyone agrees, Lu Feng said to the county magistrate. Isn't this problem solved? It doesn't have to be cash in the county. Yes, Mr. Lu is young, and his head is turning fast. This is a way. Since Mr. Lu has the heart to give back to the society, I think our place should give Mr. Lu such a chance to show it, Lee County said, smoking a cigarette. Now the township is particularly difficult. I can understand, so I think, what is the most important thing at the moment? There are 3 roads, one is the expressway, people and goods can go out, and the second is the electric line, not only have electricity, but also have telephone, communication very important. The third one is the ideological path. Viputa TV engages in activities like this, and giving back to the villagers is to solve this ideological path, to see the bigger world through the TV, and to learn more about it. Information. Lu Feng lit the cigarette in his hand and said, I think this is the greatest welfare and poverty alleviation. A deputy county magistrate couldn't listen anymore, and said in a low voice in the local dialect, I can see it, this guy doesn't want to pay a penny, and that mouth just wants to solve everything. After listening to Lu Feng's words, Magistrate Li smiled awkwardly and said, in that case, on behalf of the county, I would like to thank President Lu for his selfless dedication and give you a round of applause. There was sparse applause at the scene, and they still hoped to find supplements in other places, even if Lu Feng built a few small factories in the local area, or invested in local enterprises in agricultural machinery, fertilizer, breeding, and grass industry. But Lu Feng didn't agree at all. After this is done, the contract they signed will be a paradigm contract that can be extended to other places. Lu Feng had a meal at noon. Regarding the contract, Lu Feng thought very clearly. If the county is willing to cooperate, it will cooperate. Now that the initiative is in the hands of Lu Feng, Magistrate Li can't do the same. Signing this contract will at least get a good reputation and the common people will get some benefits. The contract was signed in the afternoon, and the 2 sides were polite. Lu Feng didn't stay much longer. He returned to the provincial capital that day. In the hotel restaurant, Lu Feng said to Zhu Lidong, this standard contract must be implemented, it is useless for some people. In terms of the ready-made sales of our points of sale, this is an excellent opportunity for expansion, and it should not be too rigid. The latter, like washing machines and VCDS, can all be added. I'm also thinking about this. Let's see the market effect. Zhu Lidong didn't dare to make a deal. If the sales situation did not improve next month, he would be embarrassed. Don't worry about the market. Those companies have already been emptied. They will definitely have nothing to do this year. If they continue to promote sales, they will be courting their own death, leaving only Changhong. I have already achieved this for you. Lu Feng looked at Zhu Lidong and said, if I go back this year, I don't have time to care about you. I will do a good job in this regard, you can rest assured, Zhu Lidong said hurriedly. How about that Nokia recently? Lu Feng asked. It has already been shipped. I heard that this time, products worth 1.5 billion were shipped here. Ericsson and Motorola are all coming and going to adjust products. By the way, there is an incident recently. Zhu Lidong remembered something and hurriedly, Deo, your story was written in Time magazine. I'm on Time magazine, Lu Feng asked in surprise. It's not a good thing, it's the recent incident that was written in it, a very small paragraph, which caused some people to be unhappy. What Nabe she asked them to take down this description, because it said the thing is, with a fledgling attitude, you defeated Watanabe's business siege and blockade. Zhu Lidong said seriously. Don't worry about it, tomorrow is Labor Day, and May has come, so let's get Ruxin Lab finished first. Lu Feng felt a little tired. There were too many things in front of him, and they were all lining up. He saw too many problems in the development of the group, which were messy, and it took time to sort them out. The process of Ruxin Laboratory is almost finished. Some time ago, I called and reported that there was only one final approval process left. Once the stamp was stamped and the money was paid here, Ruxin Laboratory completely belonged to GFN Electronics. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 832. The next day, Lu Feng flew back to Shenzhen and began to handle the daily affairs within the group. There was more and more discussion about the Northern Economic Development Zone in the industry. In the blink of an eye, 10 days have passed, and the matter in the Northern Economic Development Zone has been raging, and it has been completely put on the table from the dark. In 10 days, these people were excited to indifferent, then suspicious, and finally when Zhuliang expanded the number of cooperative counties and cities to 35, these people can be considered to have reacted, and they forced Ye County to ask what happened in the Northern Economic Development Zone. But Magistrate Ye seemed to be suddenly busy. He couldn't find anyone when he went there every day. He would always tell a few people to have meetings and study in other places. Of course there is no result. The public opinion is too turbulent, and some people have even cheated money in the name of the Northern Economic Development Zone. On May 10, the Central News published a news that the farce of the Northern Economic Development Zone can be stopped. At this point, everyone recalled that this incident was a trap set by Lu Feng from beginning to end. Huang Hongsheng and several people almost died when they heard about this, so much cash and goods were accumulated in the backlog. Here, Wipta started the subsidy war, and they have no chance of winning in the short term. Ge Quanshun even slumped on the chair. He knew that he was all over, and the panda was completely smashed into his hand. The county government responded quickly, and immediately said to the outside world that it would cancel the contract, return goods, deposits, etc., but there is a process for this matter, and it will go quickly according to the process. They never dreamed of it. This is very fast, and there is still no news after 7 or 8 years. This incident has a huge shock to the entire industry. It is called the White Incident in the electronics industry. After Lu Feng killed several companies in the north, the TV industry has completely rewritten history and ushered in Whiphu. The era of the two kings fighting for hegemony between Da and Changhong. Changhong's response is also very fast, and has already carried out relevant cooperation all over the country, vowing to have a vigorous decisive battle with Wiaputa. On May 10, the weather outside was a bit sultry. On Lu Feng's desk was a Time magazine that had just been mailed from overseas. One page was dedicated to introducing Lu Feng. An ordinary young man in the East created a miracle in a short period of time that attracted the attention of the world. In it, he simply selected some of Lu Feng's experiences, and the writing was exaggerated, but the highlight was Jiexun's pager in the face of technological blockade. The story of the hammer on the head of Motorola. Watanabe Ji is depicted as a character who was beaten all the way by Lu Feng, and was chased from Roma Group all the way to Motorola's overseas marketing department, depicted as a useless character. When Watanabe Ji saw this article for the first time, he smashed his office in anger. This incident was too insulting to him. It was equivalent to saying in front of the whole world that he had worked all his life and was finally killed by a man. Hairy boy riding on his head? Is it tolerable or unbearable? This Time magazine was placed on the desk of Eddie Lambert, president of Goldman Sachs Investment Bank. He has long stopped paying attention to Lu Feng, because he thought it was a life and death battle in the business world, but when he accidentally flipped through it, he saw it. The article, the whole person is a little surprised. In his eyes, Lu Feng, who should have been quiet, actually rushed out under the siege of a group of companies, and Jiexun pager even stepped on companies like Motorola. This is too fierce, isn't it? After so many years of investment experience, I have seen too many entrepreneurs with fierce behavior, but this is the first time I have seen someone as sharp as Lu Feng. He picked up the phone on the table and called, and said to the phone, I want some marketing materials for Jiexun's pager. You can contact Sun Hongkai in Hong Kong. It didn't take long for Jiexun pager's marketing strategy framework to be put on the table. After reading it, Lambert thought that Lu Feng had great investment value. It's just that the valuation of GFN Electronics has been blown a bit high. Let's see you if you have a chance. Lambert picked up a pen and wrote this on his memo, and at the same time sent an email to Sun Hongkai's official mailbox, expressing his concern for GFN Electronics. I'm curious, and if I have the opportunity, I hope to sit down and chat. The cooperation with Nokia is in full swing. GFN's warehouses and sales channels have been squeezed out to Nokia, and Motorola has lost on pagers. With the launch of mobile phones, it quickly occupied the market. Different from the Big Brother, which is bulky and heavy, the mobile phone on the market is a serious mobile phone, the size of a palm, the button dial, only a small gray display screen, but the price is more than 20,000 yuan, plus the base station branch does not on average, the signal is slightly stronger, and there is not much waves. Other Ericsson manufacturers are also crazy to promote the mobile phone business, but unfortunately the high price and weak signal make the market in this area not prosperous. At the end of last month, Nokia was officially listed in China, and the price was exchanged for the market. The price of about 15,000 yuan gave Nokia a good start in the mainland market and won the position of the first brother in the mobile phone market. The current Elmi is no longer the Elmi of a few months ago. She just came back from the European headquarters. She was transferred to the mainland market for training because she was a related household. Now it is completely different. She opened a market in the Far East. It was like being in a dark room with a light shining through the window, which was a huge inspiration for the whole group. In an instant, Elmi was in an unprecedented position. It can be said that she changed from a famous person to a core figure of the company. During the period of Lu Feng's absence, GFN Electronics sales channels were completely at her mercy. This is also the premise of Nokia's good sales. In the conference room, there has been a lot of discussion about the market situation of pagers. Du Guoying's marketing department has expanded to 300 people. Now they have absolute control over the entire market, and they are still looking for a market that is unique to pagers. 6 models are now on the market, right? Lu Feng flipped through the folder. We have subdivided different markets during this period, launched a stock pager, pushed the stock market situation every day, and also launched a series of subdivided markets such as administrative office and couples. Du Guoying said to Lu Feng, the current research and development work is basically completed, and these 6 models basically cover all people in the market. It has done a good job in this regard, and the market share has stabilized. I don't want it to earn 400 million for me, but 200 million. Lu Feng closed the report and asked Du Guoying, I'm not asking you to make an appointment with AI through the company. Mai, how are you? She said she was very busy, and I'll talk about it when I have time. Du Guoying looked at Lu Feng with some embarrassment, and invested so much in this woman, now Lu Feng can't even get through the phone. Very busy? How busy can you be? Lu Feng said unhappily, continue to contact her in a while. I'll talk to her. How is the Talent Reserve Center? School recruitment has started, Wei Yandan replied, we have reached cooperation with 37 universities across the country. Thousands of people enter the Talent Reserve Center every year, and it is estimated that this year will continue to expand, because of the work distribution this year. There are even fewer places, and many schools have stuffed them into private companies in order to give parents an explanation. I still say the same thing, the Talent Reserve Center is the top priority, don't want everyone to come in and pull in, try to reach a long-term talent transfer partnership with some first-class universities, such as some electronics majors, international trade, power system, circuit engineering, etc., we must do more tricks, and I may go to see it at some point during this time. You can rest assured that we have established a talent house, where we will conduct preliminary internships, and conduct trial training for positions that they are interested in. As for professional talents, this aspect is also stepping up. What do these two schools of Tsinghua University and Peking University mean? Lu Feng asked Wei Yandan, can you bring someone over here? I personally asked last year, most of them have gone abroad, and a small number of them have started their own businesses. Wei Yandan smiled awkwardly and said, maybe for our company, it is not very attractive to them. Take your time, let's do this first, let's talk about the Talent Reserve Center later. My idea is that if you want to grow rapidly, you can't be limited to the country. Everything is there. Lu Feng stood up and said, let's end the meeting. After Lu Feng left, Wei Yandan stood up and pondered what Lu Feng had just said, and asked Du Guoying, Mr. Lu's words just now, why do I sound like I'm going abroad to pull people out? Really? I really didn't listen, and it's not up to me. I'm going to eat first. Du Guoying waved her hand, picked up her things and walked out. During the period of Lu Feng's return, Ruxin Laboratory has been fully under his command, but the R/U0026D and development of the company has entered a bottleneck period, and now GFN Electronics is stuck between domestic and international. A domestic private enterprise that has risen in recent years, GFN Electronics is definitely the existence of the ceiling, but it is easy to get to the present, and it is even more difficult to go further. In the office building, Nokia established its own headquarters in Greater China. Now Elmi has officially become the president. In less than a month, there have been more than 300 employees. In addition, the sales of mobile phones are very good. Ericsson, Toshiba, and Panasonic are three, and now I constantly want to sit down and chat with her. There was a knock on the door of the office, and Elmi made a sound of exquisite professional attire. She outlined her figure somewhat charmingly. A pair of glasses was stuck on the bridge of her high nose. She raised her head and said, "Come in." A clerk walked in and said to her in English, "Mr. Lu from GFN Electronics wants to talk to you." Elmi rolled her eyes when she heard Lu Feng's name, leaned back on the chair and rubbed her temples with her hands and said, "He's really haunted, doesn't he look in the mirror himself?" Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 833. Elmi doesn't want to see Lu Feng at all now. Nokia has begun to turn in a good direction. It is expected that the European market will completely open up, and their technical background is about to explode. What Lu Feng was thinking, Elmi knew very well. It was nothing more than wanting to exchange sales channels for some technical cooperation with Nokia. However, they had already obtained the sales channel of GFN Electronics, the contract had been signed, and they did not want to pay for anything else. Elmi had a headache, so she picked up the phone and called her consultant. A few minutes later, the office door was knocked, and a white woman in her 40s walked in, with a slightly stout build, and said to Elmi, "Baby, what can I do for you?" "Monica, you know, we use the sales channel of GFN Electronics here, and this contract was obtained at a very cheap price. The reason for this contract is that the boss of this company he likes me, on the other hand, he wants to cooperate with us in the research and development field." Elmi explained the matter again and showed Monica the contract he signed. Monica, an American, has been working in the headquarters before, and this time she was sent to be Elmi's consultant, which itself is a great importance to Elmi. After Monica read the contract, this is a concession made by a licking dog when expressing his love, and said to Elmi, "Elmi, do you know what your greatest ability is?" "Looks." "Wow, you know yourself very well, so do you like him?" Monica asked. "It doesn't count, but I could feel it before that his patience with me is slowly dissipating, and he is starting to be utilitarian, especially the previous promotion of the pager. Elmi spread her hands, looking a little bit. Have no choice. Actually, you don't have to worry at all. For a person like this, he doesn't dare to do anything to you, because he has greed in his heart. He may try to get angry with you, but as long as you are really angry, he will start to be afraid. Afraid I've lost you completely. Monica leaned back on the chair and said, I tell you, I also had a lot of suitors when I was young, and sometimes I need some means to make them play around. So what do you mean? Elmi already knew something in her heart. Show your arrogance. The more beautiful a woman is, the more you have to show your superiority. Only in this way will those men crazily surrender under your skirt. On the contrary, the more humble you are, the less they care about you. Monica raised his eyebrows and said, men are dogs, they have to be trained. Elmi thought for a while, nodded as if she understood something, picked up the phone on the table and called Lu Feng. After the call was connected, he said, Mr. Lu, long time no see. Sitting in the office, Lu Feng leaned back against the chair and raised his eyebrows. Mr. Lu? I've been busy for a while recently. Is our relationship so unfamiliar? That's not the case. I've been very busy recently, and I just came back from the headquarters some time ago. Elmi said to the phone, the development here is good, and my status in the headquarters has also improved. Now it is in Greater China. Cai Tianlun and the others wanted to invite me to dinner some time ago, but I refused. Monica sat opposite and listened, whispering, tell me about Wall Street, and your participation in some celebrity private dinners or something. It's really busy, flying around, spending a lot of time on Wall Street, attending some high-end private dinners, such as Gates, Soros, and even some very powerful leaders. You know, the leaders there are willing to talk to contacted by these merchants, Elmi boasted. After listening to her words, Lu Feng felt a little unhappy in his heart. He even bragged to himself. If it were an ordinary man, he would not be on the same level as others after hearing these words. Lu Feng is different, not to mention that he is rich now. Even when he is poor, he will not eat her. Really? Don't go to those useless banquets. They used to send them to me often, and I didn't have time to go. By the way, the Ruxin laboratory I told you before has officially completed the procedure. My idea is to cooperate with you. Lu Feng mentioned the laboratory very directly. This matter, the headquarters is still discussing, mainly depends on your sincerity. Now, our Nokia is not the original Nokia. Don't underestimate the change in just over 2 months. Elmi looked at the opposite Monica, who was whispering like her, wanting to suppress Lu Feng. Anyway, we are also an international company, and GFN Electronics is just a mainland company. I don't want to say that, but there is indeed a gap in this respect. Although I like you very much, I can't make up my mind. Elmi's voice was a bit arrogant, as if the words international enterprise made her worth rising. It's not really possible. How about we meet and talk? This Monica waved her hand to signal her to hang up the phone. Elmi said, I still have something to do. If I want to meet, there will be a dinner held by the Communications Association the day after tomorrow. See you there. Hang up. After Elmi finished speaking, she hung up the phone and said to Monica, how is it? Very good. This matter has to be hanged. Let me tell you, you can't let him despair, and you can't let him get it right away. If you need to suppress it, you will suppress it. If you need to give a sweet date, give a sweet date. You are pulling, let him make more blood, and at the same time, it can delay the time. The meaning of the headquarters is that it is not impossible to cooperate in research and development, but it needs to show more sincerity. Monica obviously has a problem with how to getting more profit in business negotiation, has seasoned experience. Elmi smiled at her, obviously satisfied with the advisor. Lu Feng looked at the phone in his hand and smiled. This result was expected. It was already May, and Lu Feng didn't have much time to mess around with them. There's a lot of stuff in the back. There was a knock on the office door, and a clerk walked in and said, "Mr. Liu, the 10 o'clock financial meeting is about to start." I almost forgot. Lu Feng stood up and walked towards the door. In the conference room, there are more than 30 people sitting at the desks, headed by Bao Gan, the vice president of the group. The old man is almost 60 years old this year. He used to be the general manager of the agricultural bank. It is definitely the top class in the country. But after coming to GFN Electronics for a year, he also has a headache, because no matter what department says, Lu Feng is a fart, other departments are fine, at most the project is losing money or making a profit, and the financial department is short of money, and the whole group can't stand it. Lu Feng walked in and sat down on the chair. "Mr. Liu, I will first report to you the various expenditures of the group in the first half of the year, especially the increase in expenditures for business dinners, reimbursement, business trips, and training." Stop, stop, Lu Feng knew that the old man was going to yell at him again. Ever since Mr. Bao was in charge of finance, the finance department had been making a fuss. Asking for money was like killing him. Many department heads called to complain. Account. These details don't need to be said. How is the overall situation? Lu Feng asked. In the first half of the year, there was too much support. If we didn't have the financing from last year, we might not be able to resist. In the first 5 months of this year, the total expenditure was 1.76 billion. The biggest expenditure was the acquisition of Ruxin Laboratory. The remaining expenditure is the budget for the construction of the group headquarters building, the investment in the new factory in Tianjin, plus employee salaries, taxes, daily expenses, etc. Mr. Bao raised his wrinkled eyelids, glanced at Lu Feng with turbid eyes, and said, "VIPTA sales in the first half of this year were mediocre, and they were all supported by VCDS. The pager sales were good, but they have just begun. Therefore, the loss in the first half of the year is expected to be more than 800 million yuan. Cash. This is very good. The pressure of capital should not be borne by our family. Since we have chosen a big family like GFN Electronics, we should face the storm and pressure together." Lu Feng asked Mr. Bao, "How much is the overall expected profit this year?" Profit. The financial executives present did not dare to look at Lu Feng. The boss was still thinking about making a profit. That is a hole of more than 800 million yuan. Letting them make 800 million yuan of running water is like playing with them, but 800 million yuan of pure profit. That's really killing people, unless the sales of Wipita and Jiexun pagers continue to skyrocket in the second half of the year. Otherwise, the gap of more than 800 million yuan will still increase, because the advertising, marketing, and some supplier payments in the second half of the year need to be settled. There was a bit of silence at the scene, and President Bao coughed. "President Liu, the reverse profit is expected to be within 1 billion yuan this year. We held a meeting with President Wei a few days ago. As for the current situation of the group, it is best to maintain it well. The market, don't do other expansionary actions. It only takes 1 year to make the debt problem less prominent, and the company will be particularly relaxed within 3 years. That is to say, there's no humming money anymore, right?" Lu Feng frowned and rubbed his face with his hands. "Mr. Liu, companies are just like ordinary people living their lives. Money has to be accumulated. If you make a sum of money from outside, you will spend it. If you make a sum of money, you will spend it. Then people outside must say something." Mr. Bao was very polite. According to his analogy, Lu Feng was a prodigal. He borrowed money from outside to spend money and buy things. If there is no expansion now, then the biggest expenditure is employee wages. The monthly wage expenditure is 40 million, which is close to 80,000 people. These people, each compressing 100 yuan, can save 80 million yuan per month. 1 million, besides, the per capita salary of 400 yuan is already very high, and the salary we pay to our employees is nearly 100% higher than the market. Mr. Bao put forward his thoughts to Lu Feng. The average person is 500 yuan, and I have to dig out 100 yuan. Then every month, 80,000 people bow their heads and scold my ancestors for the 18th generation. Lu Feng leaned on the chair and pondered, if I going to Xiangjiang to make 1,800,000,000 back, at most 3 or 5 people will scold my ancestors for the 18th generation. Mr. Bao, this method you gave me is not worth it. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 834. When the people present heard this, they didn't know how to refute for a while, but the reduction of regular financial expenses must start with the wages of employees. After all, employees are the kind that are easy to deal with. I've told you many times, how much money can you get from the poor? Lu Feng said to Mr. Bao, you have to get the money from the rich. These 800 million debts are not enough for the current situation. In terms of the total assets of the group, it is not a debt. We have factories, land, machinery, markets, brands, patents, not to mention 800 million, even 8 billion is not a problem, just be bolder. Mr. Bao's old face is very wrinkled. It's really not like this. He thought about it and said, Mr. Lu, we still have a debt of 200 million in Suzhou Bank, and we also have a lot of debts with municipalities in various places. The current total debt has reached 1.2 billion, and if the debts borne by suppliers and distributors are counted, it is estimated to be nearly 1.5 billion. The debt of 1.5 billion is a figure that makes any private company in China feel numb. So many debts were not completed in one day. GFN Electronics started from Suzhou. Lu Feng borrowed everything except for less than 200 million in cash, and until now, he has not paid it back except for a little interest. Penny. But Lu Feng felt that it was not enough. The stage was as big as the dream. From the beginning of the year to the present, the pace of internationalization was very slow. There was not much progress in the overseas market, and he was completely stuck at the technical level. The gap between domestic enterprises and international enterprises is like a gulf. In the last life, Lenovo paid a price that was unacceptable for ordinary enterprises in order to cross this gap. Regarding the issue of corporate debt, the entire finance department talked about various aspects. Their suggestion to Lu Feng is to stabilize, as long as it does not take too much time. In 5 years, GFN Electronics will become the Greater China region. A presence that cannot be ignored. If you do well in research and development, marketing, branding, etc., the answer given by Mr. Bao is that it will be no problem to go to the world in 10 years. This time limit for any private enterprise in China is enough to make the boss unable to sleep with excitement. 10 years of steady progress can make his enterprise go international. There is nothing more comfortable than this. Mr. Bao saw the potential of GFN Electronics. So far, GFN Electronics has the potential to become a Big Mac, it just takes time. Of course, in order to make this boss less troublesome, the finance department actually made a pie. As long as you can eat, drink, and have fun, and stop being angry, the company will naturally become an international company. 10 years ago, other corporate executives persuaded the boss to work hard, but only Mr. Bao wanted to break his head and make Lu Feng more stable. Lu Feng looked at the group financial statement in front of him. In 10 years, he really couldn't wait. 10 years later, it would be 2004, when the mobile phone industry exploded. At that time, GFN R/U0026D company had to have the ability to replace MediaTek. If you want to make a difference in domestic chips, you must seize the era of domestic non-brand machines 2000 years later. If you think about it like this, Lu Feng really doesn't have much time. The problem of debt has never been a problem. The problem is time. The R/U0026D company must exert its strength. This year we must go out. Lu Feng closed the folder and said, next year will be 1995, time waits for no one, it will be June soon. Ah, Mr. Bao raised his eyelids to look at Lu Feng, his voice trembling a little. He is so old and has worked in a bank all his life. However, at this moment, facing Lu Feng, the old man was very unconfident, because he could hear from Lu Feng's words that this old man was going to toss again. I have a general understanding of the financial situation. You don't have to worry about this. The money issue is not really a problem. Isn't the mid-year report to the shareholders soon? Don't delay too much. This year, we will acquire overseas laboratories. Spend so much money. Shareholders are more concerned. Lu Feng said, stood up and said, just like this. As Lu Feng left, the vice president of the finance department said to Mr. Bao next to him, President Bao, what did Mr. Lu mean when he said that the time is not waiting for anyone? It just means speeding up. Mr. Bao sighed and said, this young man, I really don't understand, we can't control it. In the private dining room, Lu Feng was sitting in his seat and eating lunch. After returning, he reorganized the entire group. The domestic market has stabilized, and even the TV market is still fighting within a certain range. When the competition is in a state of stalemate, then the enterprise is equivalent to gaining a firm foothold. As long as the market slowly expands, the market share will become larger and larger, and the money will be more and more earned. It's just a matter of time, and that's why Mr. Bao dares to say that GFN Electronics will definitely go global after 10 years. Once the domestic turf is stable, we have to focus on the international market. 8 or 9 people at the dinner table were busy eating. Lu Feng didn't speak, and no one dared to speak. After a while, Lu Feng took a chopstick and said, by the way, isn't there a dinner party tomorrow? Is that the dinner organized by Nokia? Du Guoying said, they have sent invitations. I heard that in the past 2 months, their market in Europe has suddenly opened, and the domestic market has performed well, which is a good start. Nokia has started to be bullish recently. Wei Yandan took over the conversation and said, I heard Elmi said in public that once Nokia rises, no company can stop it in this world. It's been quite lively recently. Wei Yandan didn't say what happened next, it was more than lively. After Lu Feng stopped moving, Ermai became the first person in the communication circle to cheat. Mr. Lu, are you going to participate? Du Guoying put down his chopsticks and said, this banquet is mainly for the mobile phone industry. We currently have no mobile phone business. It's alright, let's have a look. Lu Feng was almost done eating, raised his head and glanced around the table, stared at Kevin and asked, how's the overseas market doing recently? We have now established overseas branches, and the products have been reported to the customs of Thailand and Singapore. The most important thing is to get rid of companies such as the Middle Square Golden Cube and Beechcraft Group, and now the business in Africa, it's all in our own hands, Kevin replied. This matter is well done. We must pay close attention to overseas markets, and at the same time, we must take more precautions. I heard that Watanabe's mind is not very normal recently, so pay more attention. Not only pay attention to Motorola, many people think that we are unhappy, international is not domestic. Maybe you are a white man, you don't have this feeling, and now internationally, Chinese people can't do anything. Lu Feng instructed Kevin, let's focus on Asia first, if there is any problem, let me know as soon as possible. Okay, in terms of funds, when the finance department approves it, it's not too happy, Kevin said after hesitating. Others also nodded their heads. This year, the financial approval of money is really unhappy. Every time I go to ask for money, it is like a fight. I just finished a meeting with the finance department in the morning, and this aspect should be reduced a lot in the future. I will solve the problem of high debt in the next 1 or 2 months. At present, there are many things at hand, so I still have to do it one by one. Lu Feng said to the crowd, stay steady, don't be impatient. Mr. Lu, I still have something I want to talk about, that is, to cooperate with Nokia. We lost too much. Du Guoying glanced at Lu Feng with embarrassment, for fear that he would be scolded, and others also reminded him not to talk to President Lu about this. What's the matter? Just say anything. Just as Du Guoying was about to open his mouth, Wei Yandan poked him with his hands under the table, indicating that he should stop talking. After all, the relationship between President Lu and Elmi is not ordinary. Say it. Seeing that his face was a little wrong, Lu Feng urged, hurry up, I'll have a lunch break when I go back later. I just think it's not worth it, the $1 contract, and then a large part of our warehouse is occupied, and the counters of the store are also squeezed out of a lot of counters, and they don't bear the losses and expenses caused by terminal sales. Yes, we have calculated that the daily cost for Nokia is basically around 30,000 yuan. Du Guoying still said it, with an expression like, the key is that people don't read our good. I sometimes get scolded. Scolded? Who scolded you? Lu Feng raised his brows, a little surprised. Don't we have a relatively large store in Guangzhou? The sales of that store have been very good. At the beginning, a 1 square meter counter was vacated for Nokia, and it sold well. They wanted to expand a little and started to put out. The billboard has grown from 1 square meter to 3 square meters. Du Guoying was obviously suffocated, put down his chopsticks and said, Nokia was just a few people from Ermai before, it was just an office, but after the goods arrived, they set up a branch, and a woman in charge of the market came. What is Mr. Zhang? The following people reported it, and I asked them to rectify it. As a result, Mr. Zhang called me and scolded me badly, saying that Nokia entered our store to give us face. Wei Yandan leaned back on the chair and pursed her lips, clasping her hands in front of her chest and not speaking. Obviously, everyone was very angry about this cooperation, especially after Nokia's breakthrough victory. This newly created team is extremely vain. Don't worry, everyone is angry, I will definitely get you back. Regarding this cooperation, I can guarantee that I will not suffer any losses. Lu Feng stood up and said, I'm done eating. By the way, Mr. Du, it should be those who rectify must be rectified according to the contract. If the other party insists on making trouble, they will be harassing them, and they will raise their booth. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 835. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he turned his head and left. The private room was quiet for a while. Wei Yandan said, I can see that this time, money has defeated desire. But it's time to make a fuss. Nokia is too much. Du Guoying sighed. The company has now matured. As long as Lu Feng has arranged the major projects, he can actually rest for a while. Wei Yandan also feels that Lu Feng has reached a stage where he can rest. After many companies have established a firm foothold in the industry, founders will give themselves a vacation, firstly to make themselves relaxed, and secondly to give corporate executives an opportunity to exercise. Generally speaking, they go out to some world-class universities for further study, maybe there is a marriage or something, and some go to the North and South Pole, climb Mount Everest or something. After the Wipata crisis was lifted, Lu Feng could indeed read books, climb mountains, and flirt with girls, but Lu Feng didn't think so. At noon, when he returned to the office, Lu Feng took a lunch break. He had a dream in a daze. In the dream, he lived in a daze until 2000. In the field of core technology, GFN Electronics has achieved some furnishing, but the company has followed suit. The market expanded and the market value soared. Lu Feng relied on the memory of later generations to invest in a series of internet companies, from search, online shopping, social networking, games, etc. GFN Electronics has become an octopus, and its tentacles are everywhere, covering major industries. Lu Feng is the richest man in mainland China. His position has also become an iron throne, which no one can shake, and then became the richest man in Asia and the world's richest man. Lu Feng, who is proud of the spring breeze, revealed his secrets in his autobiography, and he has gone back. Until one day, the technology patent war that swept the world struck again, and countless people began to question Lu Feng, since you have gone back to the past, why didn't you do this? After reliving for decades, you have gained endless wealth. Lu Feng did not dare to face these problems. He was in a state of anxiety every day. He met a little girl, and the child kept chasing him and asked, "Why not do it? Why? Ah! Damn Nemas!" Lu Feng woke up from the dream, his voice was extremely loud, his face was covered in sweat, the sun outside was extremely hot, and it was a little early for this midsummer. Next door is the office of the assistant to the president's office. The door was pushed open, and dozens of men and women rushed in. "Mr. Lu, what's wrong? Are you all right? What's wrong? Should I call an ambulance?" Lu Feng took a deep breath, looked at so many people in front of him, and said, "It's all right, it's just a nightmare, everyone, go back to work. Do you want to drink water?" Someone brought Lu Feng a glass of water, and by the way, he turned up the air speed of the air conditioner a bit before exiting. Lu Feng sat there thinking about everything that happened in his dream. If those things happened more than 20 years later, he would not be able to answer at all. Even if Lu Feng doesn't reveal his secrets, can he really face himself? After making up his mind, Lu Feng got up and sat at the desk. There was an invitation card for tomorrow on the table. He opened it, took a look, and put it aside. Anyway, I'm definitely not poor. It's a big deal to buy a ball in 10 years, and invest in a big game. If you want to play, then play a big one. Lu Feng sat there and muttered to himself. In the afternoon, Lu Feng wrote a forward-looking plan for the comprehensive internationalization of GFN Electronics in 1997. This plan is only 2 pages, but it is full of Lu Feng's thoughts on the next 3 years. In short, speed up. Accelerate. Speed up. In 1997, it caught up with the research and development speed of international manufacturers, reached the foundry level in the field of chip research and development, and has the ability to make simple chips. These goals listed by Lu Feng are the road that international companies have traveled for decades. If Lu Feng wants to complete it in 3 years, there is only one possibility left. Spend money. How much did you spend? Technological competition has been going on among various countries in the world. Now it has not been opened in China. It does not mean that we do not want to compete. But really poor. Lu Feng made a simple and crude inference from the funds required for the iteration of chip technology in later generations. He may need no less than 20 billion yuan to spend. Tens of billions of funds are definitely an astronomical figure in this era, enough to make Lu Feng the richest man in the world. Lu Feng had not made this proposal public, but locked it in his drawer. He had already made plans for raising funds in the second half of the year. Wei Yandan, Du Guoying, President Bao, and Zhu Lidong, who was on a business trip, were all wondering when President Lu would unload their burdens. They never dreamed that Lu Feng was preparing a big surprise for this group of people. At noon the next day, for the first time, as the host, Nokia hosted most of the entire industry. The mobile phone manufacturers were invited, and GFN Electronics and Bird, who did not make mobile phones, were also invited. In the banquet hall of the hotel, 7 to 88 people had already arrived, and everyone was polite to each other. They gathered in groups of 3 to 5 to chat, and several people headed by CAIT were tied together. The rise of Nokia is an unexpected result. Once this company rises, it will be a very scary thing for other companies. You must know that its background is very scary. Ericsson, Toshiba, and Motorola have communicated a lot in private recently. The competition for mobile phones is really fierce, and there is a tendency to start a price war. Everyone is here, right? CAIT looked around, there were only a few international companies. And Lu Feng and Su Liwa didn't come. Lu Feng? Su Liwa. When the people present heard these two names, their eyebrows were obviously raised, and their faces were quite displeased. In this occasion where international companies get together, these two people seem to be out of tune here. Whether it is an international company or a mobile phone manufacturer, these two know home. Mostly in the communications industry. Su Liwa walked in a suit and leather shoes. Seeing that there were some big bosses at the scene, he hurried up to say hello and said to Motorola's Lu Run, "Mr. Lu, we meet again." "Mr. Su, don't speak Mandarin on such occasions. Internationalization should start with English," Lu Run said with a red wine glass in his hand. "Sao Rui," Mr. Su smiled awkwardly. Although he was reluctant, he had to abide by other people's rules and said in fluent English, "I hope I'm not late." "That's not true, Lu Feng hasn't come yet." Elmi appeared at the scene in a light blue dress, polite to everyone, followed by Monica and a woman in her 30s. The woman in her 30s was extraordinarily arrogant, with a mean air. She was wearing a white business suit and a small suit, giving people a feeling that strangers should not be approached, as if she was more. Elmi is even more arrogant. "Mr. Cai, we meet again." Elmi looked at Cai with a smile and said, "Since we parted at the dinner last time, we haven't met at the dinner table for a long time." "That's right, the current Elmi is very different from the Elmi a few months ago, but the mobile phone market has just begun. The mainland market is not a big deal, it mainly depends on the European and American markets." Cai didn't care. "Deo, Ericsson has never taken the Huaxia market seriously. It's just a big market. Don't talk about you, it's our Motorola. If the new overseas marketing boss is not crazy, no one cares." Lu Run simply broke everything. "That's right, compared to the global market, this place is like a bitter cold place. Even if one company occupies all of it, what will happen? As long as you have Europe and the United States, you will own the world." Elmi introduced Monica and the newly appointed President Zhang, who was in charge of the marketing department. A group of people stood there chatting and laughing, but Su Liwa was the only one who stayed aside. Most of their conversations were about international affairs. "Son, what the European Union, what the United States, Silicon Valley, he really can't get in." "Are you all here?" Elmi asked. "There's still one more." Lu Feng. When Cai mentioned Lu Feng, his expression was a little teasing. It seemed that this pair of ambiguous objects had now become the focus of everyone today. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Feng handed over the invitation, and then strode in, followed by Du Guoying. "Yo, I'm all here, it looks like I'm the finale." Lu Feng walked over and glanced at Elmi with unbridled eyes. After not seeing him for so long, he was indeed a bit prettier. Monica and Mr. Zhang are also staring at Lu Feng. Monica's first impression of Lu Feng is that this person is full of rebelliousness. He is definitely not a businessman who follows the rules in the ordinary sense. Very aggressive gaze. I didn't feel that in such an occasion, this kind of gaze on a beautiful woman would feel that it was not in line with her identity. This guy is definitely a market guy. "Mr. Lu is here," Su Liwa said politely. "Mr. Su is here too. How's it going?" "Bird hasn't moved for a long time." Lu Feng asked Su Liwa, "It seems that the crisis has passed." "Thanks to you, we have completely transformed now, mainly in the market below 2,600, and the competitiveness is relatively low," Su Liwa said with a smile. "Jiexun pager is 2,600. This price is currently the most competitive, and everyone is reluctant to lower prices and damage their brand value, so the market below 2,600 is very comfortable to live. Bird also took the opportunity to find its own position and completely stood firm. Really? It's all my own, so you're polite. Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said affectionately, as long as the domestic product does well, I'll be happy. Even if GFN Electronics goes bankrupt tomorrow and you rise up, I'll be happy. All happy. President Lu is really big-hearted, Su Liwa said with a smile. Baby, aren't you happy to see me? Lu Feng smiled at Elmi. Monica immediately gave Elmi a wink. If she wants to get more from Lu Feng, she has to hang him. Now is not the time to give him sweetness. Hello, Mr. Lu. Elmi reached out and shook hands with Lu Feng. Mr. Lu, Lu Feng laughed awkwardly and said to Cai-Tianlun, Mr. Cai hasn't seen each other for a while, and the two devils are here too. Mr. Lu, this is an international company's banquet. Please speak English. Cai-Tianlun stared at Lu Feng and said, I don't understand. Except for the two of us, the others are international companies, and they are required to speak English, Su Liwa reminded in a low voice. Speaking chicken feathers in English, I like to understand, but if you don't understand, find an interpreter, Lu Feng said angrily, get used to his troubles. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 836. Lu Run saw that Lu Feng's face was full of displeasure, but he also knew what this person was like, so he could only ignore him. The others hadn't spoken yet. Mr. Zhang from Nokia's marketing department couldn't help it and said, Mr. Lu, today is an international business gathering. Is it the most basic courtesy to speak English? Who are you? Lu Feng looked at her and asked. I am the person in charge of Nokia's domestic marketing department and the person in charge of connecting with GFN Group. Mr. Zhang stared at Lu Feng and said somewhat provocatively, my surname is Zhang. I've found a thing. People who work for foreigners seem to have their eyes on the top of their heads. It's up to me to speak English or not. Lu Feng looked at Lu Run and said, Mr. Lu, you're right. Bar. Lu Run didn't want to fight, and glanced aside. Elmi couldn't understand what Lu Feng was talking about, but she didn't feel it was a pleasant topic. She smiled pretty face and said, since everyone has arrived, let's take a seat first. After being polite to each other, everyone took their seats. Su Liwa politely said to Lu Feng, Mr. Lu, find a seat. We are not an international company, so we have to bow down here. What about international companies? A little bit of foreign ink will make you better than others. Lu Feng sat down and said angrily, Mr. Su, I hate this kind of person the most. What's the use? In the end, you have to do real work, don't you think? This is correct. In the end, the market speaks. Even if Su Liwa did not agree with Lu Feng's words, he had to support Lu Feng's face at this time. How much can you sell in a month now? Lu Feng took a sip of the water in front of him and asked, if the price is low, 108,000 pagers should be fine, right? How is that possible? I laughed halfway through, I can't compare with you. Su Liwa immediately moved the topic to another place. The two of them talked quite harmoniously in this international circle, as if a hometown sees a hometown. At the dinner table, Lu Feng put his arms around Su Liwa's shoulder and kept saying that domestic products should be self-improvement, and even more emotional after drinking some wine. Elmi and Cai-Tianlun talked about the current domestic market. They estimated that the current domestic mobile phone market annual sales volume is around 100,000 units, and the annual incremental market is expected to be around 30%. Don't underestimate 100,000 mobile phones. At the price of 20,000 yuan per terminal, that is 2 billion in sales. As for the cost of it, it depends on the cost of each company. No matter how high the cost is, there is number 1000% and 800% profit. As long as the company sells more than 20,000 units a year in China, then the company can do well. CAITianLun and Luron think it is very simple, everyone does not need to die, the market is so big, and whoever buys it anyway, yes, as long as potential users will definitely buy it. I mean, you raised the unit price. Now the terminal price of 15,999 is very inappropriate. CAITianLun looked at and said, as long as we don't competing with each other, the price will not be broken, high sales volume or high profit, I believe you can also calculate it. Luron and the person in charge of Toshiba next to him nodded slightly. Of course, high profit is the most important thing. It doesn't take much at all. It only needs to spread the market channels. When consumers have no choice, that is when they can easily harvest. If the group of people present competed, wouldn't advertising fees and after sales be all costs? Elmi is also pondering, if he does nothing, there will be hundreds of millions of pure profits every year. Isn't this just lying down to make money, not to mention that this market is based on the current GDP growth rate, and the annual market expansion is 100%. 30 or so. Where in the world can I find such a good leak field? The most important thing is that Nokia's sales channels do not need to pay for itself, and GFN Electronics is still expanding. In a single round of sales channels, Nokia has beaten everyone present. This proposal is really good. Let's talk about it later, let's have a toast. Elmi raised the red wine glass. Suliwa was extremely embarrassed. These people did not shy away from discussing how to harvest this market in front of them, completely ignoring him and Lu Feng. Suliwa didn't know whether to raise a glass or not. After all, this was harvesting the domestic market. Of course, he knew that this was a premium sale after capital monopoly. It was because there was no mobile phone company in China that could compete with them, so they were so unscrupulous. Just as Suliwa was about to pick up the wine glass, Lu Feng said with a cold face, "Everyone, it's not appropriate to celebrate this kind of thing, right? Anyway, I'm also from this country, so cover up a little bit, even a little bit." Lu Feng, Elmi looked at Lu Feng and said with a gloomy expression, "Almost all right, pay attention to the occasion." Does Mr. Lu understand English? Do you need me to translate it for you? Mr. Zhang stared at Lu Feng and said, "I want you to pay attention to your face." "I pay attention to the occasion? What occasion? Isn't it just eating and drinking together? What are you doing so high?" "Now I can't climb high." Lu Feng threw the knife and fork in his hand on the table and said, "I've already given you a lot of face today." "Already?" "Mr. Lu, you don't need to be angry," Monica said to Lu Feng with a smile on her face. "I believe you have seen this on this occasion today. They are all international companies, and for you, they are also opportunities and windows to contact international companies. Elmi only called you to come because she was kind to you, you should know how to be grateful." "Oh. Yo, you're so high." Lu Feng looked around at everyone present with a surprised expression. "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was just a few months ago, you already have such a compulsion." "Well, I haven't caught up with this hillbilly. If I say that, I have to thank you for your honor and let us sit here for dinner. It's good that you know your identity. You should know better than anyone else in your heart. Now it's you who broke it yourself." "We didn't belittle you like that." There was arrogance in Mr. Zhang's voice, as if he had finally spoken his mind. In her eyes, what if you are rich in China? It's still not earthy, it's not long before I've eaten a full meal, and suddenly getting rich is nothing but pretentiousness. Since President Zhang recognizes this class so much, who the hell told you to talk? Lu Feng turned his face to the side, his face full of frost, and said, "My vice president never said a word from beginning to end, why do you talk so much? Really? Do you think you feel like you are a thing just sitting there? Who are you scolding, Mr. Zhang couldn't look down on Lu Feng from the bottom of his heart, and now he can't bear this scolding. His eyes widened, and he was already angrily said, "Look at you like that, no matter how rich you are, you're just stupid. Bastard, go home and learn English, shame on you." "Very good. Isn't it cheap? I asked you, is it you who keeps occupying Jia Feng's electronic counter?" Lu Feng asked her. "What's wrong with me? Let me tell you, the foreign brands entering your counter is to put money on your face. I don't know how many counters want to pay us to go there, but we are too lazy to go. Do you know that foreign-funded international companies, how many intangible advertisements have these labels brought to you? If it wasn't for Elmi's relationship with you, do you think it would be your turn?" Mr. Zhang said with great confidence, and shouted to Lu Feng, "I don't know what I am." Well, Lu Feng was fooled for a moment by her righteousness, as if the other party was taking advantage of his own sales channels. Monica couldn't understand what the two were arguing about, so she still whispered to Elmi, "The first step must be to knock down his arrogance. As long as he doesn't dare to turn his back on you, we will win. Master with him, he will control the sales channels of Jia Feng Electronics." Elmi nodded slightly. In the past 2 days, they felt that the most critical place to develop in the mainland was the sales channel of Jia Feng Electronics. Lu Feng always wanted to cooperate in research and development, but the headquarters was unwilling to cooperate with such a small company. Monica felt that he could control Lu Feng. In fact, humans and dogs are the same, and they can be domesticated. As long as Lu Feng wants to get Elmi's favor, as long as he compromises once, it will be easy in the future. The key problem now is that Mr. Zhang can't stimulate Lu Feng too much. "So awesome. Do I have to find you some money?" Lu Feng smiled when he saw Mr. Zhang. It was the first time he had seen such a thick-skinned person. "That's not necessary, Mr. Lu. I hope you will always be grateful in the future." Mr. Zhang didn't feel that Lu Feng's words were scolding him. Lu Feng saw Elmi and Monica muttering and didn't know what to say, so he had to say in English, "I'm not here today to participate in some bullshit international dinner, and I'm not here to hear you join forces to create a monopoly. It's just one thing, for the encroachment on our counter, restore it as soon as possible, or don't blame me for being rude." "Is what you just said in vain? With your measure, do you still want to develop internationally?" "Bah!" Mr. Zhang spat at the ground and scolded unceremoniously, "I tell you, as long as we withdraw after going out for less than a month, Jia Feng Electronics will be useless, and the buyers in the market will not buy it because you have cooperation with us. If you don't believe me, try it." Lu Feng started to speak English, and Elmi couldn't pretend to be deaf and dumb, and said in a commanding tone, "Don't say a few words, Lu Feng, shut up." Lu Feng ignored Elmi at all, and shouted at President Zhang, "Let me try." "You can try again by yelling at me. Do you have the right to speak? Take care of yourself without urinating." Mr. Zhang stood up and pointed his finger at Lu Feng's nose and said, "Shout out to me, you are not qualified, who to rely on for food is in your own mind. No points." "Damn it, what's so awesome?" Lu Feng stood up and stared at her. "I really think I dare not kick Nokia out of my house, don't I?" Cai-Tianlun listened eagerly, and when he heard this, he hurriedly slapped the table and shouted, "If you are a man, just do what you say, or don't fart. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent Mobile Version Reading Website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 837. Seeing Cai Tianlun interjecting, Elmi couldn't sit still at first. If he stimulated Lu Feng too much, it would easily cause him to overreact. "Okay, this is a matter between Nokia and Jia Feng Electronics, so don't bother Mr. Cai to say more. Mr. Lu, come here." Elmi stood up, as if she wanted to solve it in private. "Is there anything I can't say here?" Lu Feng looked at her and asked. Seeing that Lu Feng didn't stand up, Elmi frowned slightly, and said displeasedly, "Since Mr. Lu wants to talk at the dinner table, let's talk here. We haven't seen each other for so long, you are such an attitude. I asked you and President Su to come here today because I want you to participate in more exchange meetings between international companies, which is good for you. Don't say these are useless. Just one thing, the counter area stipulated in the contract is determined by us. Recently I heard that you are forcibly occupying some counter space, and this President Zhang is even more arrogant." Lu Feng said to Elmi, "Don't say anything about your attitude, how to solve this matter." "I'm still talking about the counter." Mr. Zhang sneered, folded his hands on his chest, leaned on the chair with a disdainful expression, and said, "Mr. Lu, would you like to open up the layout a little bit? You don't really think we care about that counter? Now Nokia's domestic sales are very good. As long as we want, we can open up a sales channel at any time. Why do we cooperate with you? We are helping you. You don't understand this." That is to say, Lu Feng has a strong heart. When ordinary people hear this, they are afraid that they will be angry and take it on the spot. It's simply a joke of the world. Elmi seemed to agree with this statement and said to Lu Feng, "I hope you can understand my painstaking efforts. But I didn't expect you to be like this. You know that Nokia products are placed on the counter of GFN Electronics. What does it mean? Do you know how many domestic companies want such an endorsement?" "What do you mean by these?" Lu Feng raised his eyebrows. "I just want you to understand that GFN Electronics is a domestic company after all, and you still have to pay attention to your own identity. You should also know what domestic consumers' attitude towards international companies is now. As long as there is a little foreign style, the products will sell well. Ding Andian, do you really think that the pager is selling so much? You're marketing it yourself." Elmi's words were full of arrogance. "So, is it still your light? Mr. Lu, you don't really think that you are qualified to sit with us, do you?" Lu Run took the opportunity to say, "Before, it was only because everyone in the pager market was sitting together. This premise is still the mainland market. Come on, you're not even worthy to carry our shoes." The others couldn't help laughing when they heard this. First, they felt that Lu Feng was pressing them in the pager field during this period of time, and they were really angry, but after saying this, they felt much better. Second, it was to tell the truth, Lu Run, these people are just small tentacles representing these international companies, and they really want to use the entire behemoth to fight. GFN Electronics is just a little ant. Su Liwa sat there with a livid face. This meal was definitely the most useless meal he had ever eaten. Everyone was no longer in harmony, but showed their status and class, as if they were the clowns at the dinner table for fun. Du Guoying couldn't sit still anymore. If Lu Feng wasn't here, he would have gotten up and left long ago. Ha ha ha, he. Only Lu Feng sat there and laughed, watching everyone couldn't help laughing. When everyone saw him laughing like this, everyone was a little stunned, not knowing what was funny. "Lu Feng, what's so funny? Let's hear it, let's have a good time," Lu Run asked. "I'm laughing at you people, don't you have any tricks? Are you starting to use your identity as an international company to talk about things? It's not worthy to carry your shoes. Are you not afraid that I will drag your shoes and slap your face?" The expression on Lu Feng's face tightened, and he said solemnly, "Elmi, are you trying to turn your back on me?" "I'm not turning your back on you. It's you who don't know how to be grateful." Monica grabbed in front of Elmi and said, "You only know what you paid for, don't care how much we paid. Do you know how hurtful it is for you to do this? Tisk tisk tisk, worthy of being an international company, you're really good at fighting." Lu Feng took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, lit one, and said, "I should thank Miss Elmi for hanging out with people like me. Together, I really insulted you. Mr. Lu, please pay attention to your personal qualities and don't smoke in public," Monica reminded. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you that I have no quality. Lu Feng stood up and said to the crowd, everyone is from an international company, it's not suitable for me to sit here, then I will excuse me. Already. Hearing this, Du Guoying immediately stood up, ready to leave at any time. Su Liwa took a deep breath and stood up. Seeing Lu Feng's displeased expression, El Mi said, Lu Feng, there is a saying in China that seeing the good and thinking together, you also have international ambitions. When I chose to cooperate with you, I also wanted to give you a hand, to be international. Not only is the product sold to the world, but more importantly, it is integrated into the international circle, and you need someone to bring you in. What's the matter? I have to go to Wall Street to visit a peer first? You are international, why do I hear the smell of a gang enclosure? I also leave a sentence, you have already done the first year of the new year, so don't blame me for the 10th year. 5th, I have always eaten soft and not hard, so I said so much. My subordinates saw Zhenjiang and left. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he waved to Du Guoying and walked towards the gate, and Su Liwa also followed. Everyone present, look at me, I look at you. Cai Tianlun and Lu Run looked at each other and sneered secretly in their hearts. Nokia relies on GFN electronics channels in the mainland. If it really breaks up, the biggest beneficiary is everyone present. It's just that everyone is talking about the price alliance now, so it's hard to say anything to get in the way, otherwise, there's really a good show to watch. Seeing that Lu Feng left without turning his head, El Mi still felt a little bit of a drum in her heart, for fear that if Lu Feng came to the truth, once the contract was cancelled, Nokia would be finished. Monica held the most steady, picked up the red wine in front of her, and said elegantly, let's continue. President Zhang raised her chin arrogantly and let out a cold snort. She really believed that international companies could make domestic companies pursue wildly, and that arrogance overflowed from the bottom of her heart. In terms of price, I think it is acceptable. Except for our few, there is no threat to the market. If it is appropriate, the contract of the price alliance can be signed at any time, Monica suggested. The three of Lu Feng went downstairs, and Su Liwa said angrily, it's too much, where can there be such a thing? It's just insulting. What about international companies? Can international companies bully people? Mr. Su, why didn't you say anything just now? Du Guoying looked at him and said. I just like to save face too much, this is really disgusting. I still came from Ningbo, and I still monopolize in front of us, it's shameless. I feel more and more now, Mr. Lu was right before, if domestic enterprises fail to develop, ordinary consumers will be sheep to be slaughtered, Mr. Su said angrily. So, my generation should be self-improvement, and we are our own people. Lu Feng patted Su Liwa on the shoulder and said, in the pager market, they dare not talk like this, why? It's because there are people with lofty ideals like you and me. Su Liwa breathed a sigh of relief, and he seemed to be very angry. He is also a well-known young talent in China. The key to his fate today is not to dare to speak. If he offends those present, he will really go to the international development may be a stumbling block for you. What a fool. It's useless because you still have fantasies in your heart. Now you can see the situation clearly. Who is standing on the same line with you? You have a clue in your heart. Lu Feng said to him, go back. Then I'll go back first. I'll go to Ningbo if I have time. I'll be the host, so I'll definitely entertain you, Su Liwa politely said. Don't worry, domestic companies are all good brothers. The two cheered each other on, wishing they could support each other, make the domestic communication industry advance by leaps and bounds, and rush out of Asia to face the world. Watching Mr. Su's car go away, Du Guoying sighed, Mr. Su is also a man of temperament. Only when domestic enterprises are united can there be a future. A person with a good temperament? If it was a person with a good temperament, he should have spoken just now. Lu Feng said to Du Guoying, what will the pager do next, do you understand? Next step, Du Guoying was stunned and wondered, what's wrong? Didn't you hear it just now? The price of 2,600 in the terminal market is very fierce, and the price of bird below 2,600 is almost exhausted. After returning, a new brand will be launched, focusing on the price below 2,600, competing for market, Lu Feng said solemnly. Du Guoying was dumbfounded. Didn't he still sympathize with each other just now? Lu Feng turned his face a little faster. Understood, this matter will be arranged as soon as possible. Du Guoying asked, what about Nokia? It's just a Nokia, I mean, this farce should have been created by the new Monica. Come with me. Lu Feng snorted and walked towards the car, muttering, play don't kill you. Mr. Lu, if we want to go international, we can't offend these companies too much. Du Guoying trotted to catch up and said, this is where their confidence lies. What is an international company? Those who are supported by international capital and occupy a dominant position in the global market are called international companies. It's just them. If you really want to gain a firm foothold in the world, you have to fight it out, not lick it out. Lu Feng, as he spoke, he opened the car door, sat in and said, as long as we turn over a few companies and build our muscles, we are an international company. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 838. Du Guoying drove back in the car. Lu Feng sat in the back row and closed his eyes. He looked at the man in the back row through the rearview mirror. The two were only a few years apart, but Lu Feng seemed to be much calmer than Du Guoying. At the dinner party just now, Du Guoying still cherishes Mr. Su. After all, these companies are acting like outsiders at the moment. Only these two companies are struggling in China. Now Bird is not too threatening to GFN Electronics. However, Lu Feng still wanted to slaughter the knife. Du Guoying felt that there was nothing in this world that Lu Feng dared not do, and what Elmi said actually made sense. After Nokia mobile phones entered the GFN counter, consumers felt that there was an inexplicable relationship with foreign capital, as if GFN Electronics really got a little bit of a foreigner. This is the basis of Nokia's tossing. But he just wanted to rely on this, and with a good-looking Elmi, he wanted to take advantage of Lu Feng. Afraid to think too much. Du Guoying had no doubt that even if Lu Feng gave Nokia a favor, it was not unexpected. After the dinner was over, Elmi returned to the company and recalled that Lu Feng left the table angrily, for fear that he would be overworked and make him do something uncontrollable, looked at Monica and said, why don't I make a phone call and comfort me? He. Appease who? Monica asked. Lu Feng. What are you doing to appease him? You just want to put pressure on him now, and you'll be pressing him to the death. As long as he is willing to bow his head, he can do whatever he wants in the future. If you bow your head to him now, he will immediately feel arrogant again. Monica to Elmi, don't call him, wait for him to apologize to you. That's right, Elmi, you don't know how many people like you, just based on your looks, education, family, how many men are kneeling on the ground begging for your favor. Why are you bowing your head to him? Elmi flattered, what's more, you are still a foreigner. If Lu Feng is really with you, he will definitely be proud of his ancestors. You don't know the situation in China. Neither Monica nor President Zhang have ever had contact with Lu Feng. Elmi has been with Lu Feng for a while. I don't know if she is honoring her ancestors, but Elmi feels that Lu Feng is afraid of digging up her ancestral grave at the moment. The heart has it all. This man is not the same as those they thought, he is too strong. Don't worry, even if he doesn't give in the end, it's a big deal if we follow the contract and we won't lose anything in the end, but once it succeeds, It can devour Jiafeng's best sales channel. Monica said to Mr. Zhang, in the past few days, I have been fighting for advertisements and counter positions at several counters with the best sales. Don't worry, I'm the best at this, Mr. Zhang said to himself. Then make this arrangement first. Monica saw that Elmi was still a little hesitant, and comforted, you don't want him to be so powerful, believe me, we will only take advantage of this method. If he resists more fiercely, it's a big deal to come back. Okay, Elmi nodded and thought about it carefully. This is indeed a way to make sure no losses. After Lu Feng returned to the company, he held 2 meetings in succession, both of which were about the Talent Reserve Center. Wei Yandan made great efforts in this area, and organized 2 large folders of relevant information. At the same time, the reform plan for the Talent Reserve Center was also raised a thick stack. It was already past 6 o'clock in the evening. There were people in their 30s sitting in the huge conference room. The atmosphere was a little serious. Lu Feng was smoking a cigarette and looking at the pile of folders in front of him, among which were the management plans of the Talent Reserve Center. At present, I still think that it is better to put the Talent Reserve Center under the management of the business department, and everyone agrees with this plan. Regarding the internal reform of the personnel reserve, we tend to do levels, such as first-level talents, second-level talents, and special-level talents. For talent or something, just imitate the National Academy of Sciences to get it, Wei Yandan said with a structure diagram. Don't do this, the Talent Reserve Center is full of young people. If you don't feel it, you have to make them feel very powerful. What kind of first level or second level? They feel very old-fashioned after listening to it. Lu Feng directly denied it, pondered for a while, and said, according to my opinion, it sounds cool, and the Talent Reserve Center not only needs to reserve interns, but also senior executives. In the words of Tiandi Xianhuang, how to do this, the vice president beside him wondered. It is divided into Yellow Court, Xian Court, Earth Court, and Heaven Court. The Yellow Court is the interns who have just come in, the Xian Court is the middle and lower management, the Earth Court is the middle management, and the Heaven Court is the senior management. The interns in this group have a motivating effect. It seems that they are only 2 or 3 levels away before they can enter the Heavenly Court, so give them hope. Otherwise it would be ridiculous to have 10 people to run 8, Lu Feng said to the crowd. Everyone at the scene nodded, and when it comes to painting cakes, we have to look at President Lu. Then follow Mr. Lu's plan. The internal management of these 4 courtyards will be planned at that time. Wei Yandan took the plan and put it in front of the assistant next to him. The assistant wrote the plan of the 4th courtyard on the plan. I am entrusted with the important responsibility of the Talent Reserve Center. If the R/U0026D company is the brain of the group, then the Talent Reserve Center is the heart of the group. The Talent Reserve Center also plays an important role in training and is also an important department for implementing the corporate culture. Therefore, it is directly managed by the group headquarters, and the business department of the group is in charge. Lu Feng said to the crowd, to attract more talents, only by gathering talents can we develop rapidly. Funds and talents are the 2 legs. As long as there are these 2, there is nowhere in the world to go. Recently, we are also focusing on it. The brain drain of the previous reserve center was indeed serious, and it was also our dereliction of duty. Wei Yandan stood aside and admitted his mistake. It's not your problem, it's mainly about development needs. Not only domestically, but more importantly, abroad. We must now have an international perspective, and we must consider the world in everything. In the field of talent recruitment, we need to attract global talents. Therefore, in addition to these 4 hospitals, another hospital will be opened, mainly to attract some foreign talents and establish talent transfer cooperation with foreign universities. When a group of responsible persons present heard this, their faces became solemn. It is very difficult for domestic colleges and universities to cooperate. How to cooperate with foreign countries? If it is some ordinary universities, It is not necessary. They do not understand the situation of overseas schools, and they are easy to be deceived. As for overseas famous schools, they will not pay attention to you at all. Mr. Liu, I think it's more difficult to cooperate with overseas schools. Wei Yandan said what everyone was thinking. It's true that we don't know about some situations in overseas schools, and it's easy to be deceived. This matter still needs to be considered slowly. It is best to come up with a process. The content inside is more complicated. Everyone was talking nonsense, for fear that Lu Feng would set this matter as an evaluation index for them. At that time, they might not be able to complete the task even if they were catching foreigners all over the country. Overseas schools are very difficult, so you are currently doing a good job in China. As for me, I will go to open up overseas markets. Lu Feng glanced at the folder and asked, is the Talent Reserve Center still set up in Suzhou? Yes, there are more than 200 interns being trained in a building in the factory over there. Every month, a department will go there to select people, Wei Yandan replied. I have time to take a look. While expanding the recruitment of personnel, we must also do a good job of sub-centers, such as Shenzhen and other big cities, and don't be too restrained in training. The experience, culture, and identity of the company must be yes, but you can't let them run away. If you need to fight chicken blood, fight chicken blood. Make them feel that they are supervisors after 1 year, deputy managers after 2 years, regional leaders after 3 years, and executives after 5 years, understand? Lu Feng said to Wei Yandan, you have to give them hope. We will strengthen this aspect. Next, we will form a series of plans for the management of the Reserve Center to implement. Wei Yandan agreed. Let's talk about this first, and then we'll talk about it later. You can spend some money on some difficult schools. Lu Feng stood up and whispered to Wei Yandan, aren't many schools now starting to have some employment rates? Talk to some key people in the school, and give one person a tap of 50 or 100 yuan, and when you come, hold down and instill the corporate culture, so that the retention rate will be higher. Wei Yandan nodded secretly and said, Mr. Liu, these children have been studying hard for all these years, and their families are looking forward to assigning regular workers. Isn't it a little bit? Look at you. Lu Feng glanced at her and said, why don't you think about problems? It's a general trend to no longer pay for distribution. These children will face society sooner or later. What are we doing? We are saving them. Think about it, a college student finds a job by himself, and then goes to work, and finally does not pay wages. This kind of thing is so common now. Many. It's quite a lot. Wei Yandan nodded. Yeah, in this comparison, are we doing charity? Lu Feng patted Wei Yandan on the shoulder and said, you have to understand a truth. The exaggerated words at the beginning are to guide them towards the right path. What you said really makes sense. We can give them a bottom line. They are still young. It's a good thing not to know that this society has no bottom line. Wei Yandan realized. Isn't that right? Nokia's occupation of the counter seems to be serious now. Are you going to communicate or me? Wei Yandan asked. I already talked during lunch, so don't worry about it. Lu Feng turned his head and said casually to the crowd, let's end the meeting. One more thing, in the contract we signed with President Feng before, is there a time limit for the next round of financing? No, this is generally not restricted, the restriction is to dilute the equity. Wei Yandan replied. Oh, that's it, I see, let's eat. Lu Feng said something thoughtfully, and walked slowly towards the door. Wei Yandan looked at his back, and his intuition told her that Lu Feng was short of money. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 839. Since Lu Feng came back, the intensive meetings have not stopped, and the entire group's executives can feel that Lu Feng seems to want to let the group find a direction to break through and take a step forward. However, Such a rapid development is unprecedented in the history of domestic private enterprises. It is easier said than done to seek breakthroughs in the short term. Many of the senior executives who used to be leaders of state-owned enterprises persuaded Lu Feng that going international is not only a problem of the company, but more importantly, the problem of the country behind it. If your country has no right to speak in the world, then the company going out is the meat on the chopping board. The reason why American companies are all over the world is not because the entrepreneurs there are strong, but the United States is strong. Lu Feng understands a lot of things, but he wants to blog about it. Monica understood the truth better, so she expected that Lu Feng would not have a second choice except to give in. At 8 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng finished his dinner and went back to the office. He sat on a chair smoking a cigarette. It was already June. The heat was raging, the air conditioner was blowing cold wind, and the smoke from the cigarette butts wafted in the wind. Lu Feng stood up and opened the window. The sultry heat outside seemed to find an outlet, and rushed in. Lu Feng took a deep breath to stop himself from thinking about work for a while. Duo is going on vacation again. This little guy is in the second grade since the start of school. Lu Feng glanced at the month card on the table, thinking of calling her, but seeing that it was almost 9 o'clock, he gave up the idea. Divorce is also good, at least I don't think so much. An entrepreneur who works hard outside, which family is complete. There are several rich and happy families in the world, and one of them is envied by outsiders, and they have both. I'm afraid God will be jealous. Lu Feng muttered to himself and took a puff of cigarettes. He didn't get married in his last life because he was busy with work. When he was busy, he couldn't take care of his family. Many wealthy people say that the red flags at home will not fall, and the colorful flags are fluttering outside. In fact, the colorful flags are fluttering outside, and the green flags at home are extraordinarily emerald green. After twisting the cigarette butt into the ashtray, Lu Feng picked up the phone on the table, and finally called the Feng family. When the call was connected and transferred to Zhen Kun, the other party was also stunned, not knowing what Lu Feng meant by calling at this time. He picked up the phone and asked, "Hello, Mr. Lu, how have you been recently?" "It's fine, Uncle Kun, you're fine too," Lu Feng asked with a smile. When Zhen Kun heard this, Uncle Kun's tears were about to fall. The last time Lu Feng called him, he just called him an idiot. Zhen Kun took a deep breath and said, "Everything is fine." "You called so late, what's the matter?" "I just want to ask how you and Mr. Feng are doing recently. The company's semi-annual report will be released soon, and it will be delivered directly to the company. Every shareholder company has it. The first half of this year is still very good, especially when the pager is opened. The new road of the machine has also mastered many new technologies. At present, in terms of comprehensive strength, there is no enterprise in the mainland that can compare with GFN Electronics." Lu Feng's voice was full of happiness. "Mr. Lu has worked hard. You have been conscientious over the years, especially after Sun Hung Kai became a shareholder. You have been working hard day and night. I have to say that you have led the entire management of the group to create a miracle. I am here on behalf of the board of directors of Sun Hung Kai. Let me give you an opinion. By the end of this year, GFN Electronics will hold a board of directors, hold a key commendation meeting, and give you a red dress and issue a certificate." Jenkins said with a smile, "Let's organize this matter, okay? Don't, just do a little work, I can't afford it." Lu Feng cursed inwardly, "Damn, just give the streamer, and the certificate will send him away. He knows the tricks of these capitals best. After a few years, he will encourage you to go public and give you blood. Once they go public, they will cash out and run away. If they do not go public, they will introduce other shareholders to dilute their equity and form the voting power of the board of directors, and then squeeze yourself out. I don't think I've done enough, especially recently. I've been bullied, Uncle Kun. I'm wronged, I don't know who to say to some things. After thinking about it, I can only give you a call. In my heart, you are a kind elder. The grievances in Lu Feng's voice were indescribable, as if being bullied was enough. Zhen Kun was really annoyed. He took the phone and rolled his eyes, thinking to himself that he was just a fool. What's wrong? Actually, you are in my heart, just like my child. If you have anything to say to Uncle Kun, Zhen Kun hurriedly comforted. I attended a dinner party today. Recently, GFN Electronics cooperated with Nokia. They obtained the mainland's network access license, but they did not share the technology with me. At dinner today, people said that I was a small and broken company, and I was not qualified. Sitting at a table with them, they are all big international companies. Don't you think you're angry? Just tell me that in front of my face. I'm just angry. There's no way, we're not a big international company. Lu Fengchao talking about his unhappiness over the phone. Nokia is normal after the split. What companies are there? It's just a bunch of rubbish. Ericsson, Motorola, Toshiba, and a Panasonic. As long as I have enough money in my hand, I will do one of these broken companies, Lu Feng said angrily. Zhen Kun on the other end of the phone is already numb. He thinks that Lu Feng is just calling to play tricks on him. Can these companies be defeated if they have money? Mr. Lu, calm down, don't worry about these small businesses. It's getting late, why don't you take a rest earlier? Zhen Kun already felt that something was wrong. I was also pissed off, but I thought about it this evening. I can't be so depraved. Recently, the senior management of the group have been persuading me to take a break, travel, and go to a big city. Lu Feng sighed lowly and said, but I can't let go of this situation. It's okay, time will heal everything. I'll just say it straight. Would you like to say it directly? Zhen Kun said embarrassedly. Uncle Kun, Lu Feng said solemnly, I think people have to have dreams, and the stage can be as big as the dream. GFN Group has not raised funds for a long time, and it has been difficult all the way. With so much equity in my hand, I feel more people should be involved. If there are not more people, Mr. Feng is willing to add 18 billion yuan, and I have no problem. 80 billion? Zhen Kun was dumbfounded. Sun Hongkai was engaged in finance, not money printing. Mr. Feng has already rested. Regarding the new round of financing, I will talk about it tomorrow, and see if Mr. Feng supports it. I think he will probably think that GFN Electronics is developing too fast, and there should be a period of time. In a stable period, too fast expansion will cause problems, Zhen Kun said tentatively. I know all this, but I can guarantee that you will only make money and not lose money, Lu Feng said with confidence. We discuss and discuss. You should rest early, Zhen Kun said politely. Okay, you can rest early too. Good night, Uncle Kun. After hanging up the phone, Zhen Kun's back unknowingly soaked a layer of sweat, and he muttered, what is it? It's only 18 billion yuan, and 3 to 5 billion yuan is already a sky-high price. Where can I find it? Kind of a fool. The 18 billion fools are hard to find, and the 12 billion fools are preparing at the moment. The Office of the President of the Investment Department of Goldman Sachs Group has recently issued a lot of tasks about GFN electronic information collection. When Lambert investigated this company, he found a surprise, that is, Goldman Sachs Group's Yangjiang branch actually borrowed 50 million from Lu Feng shortly after GFN Electronics was established. 10,000 debts were changed into debt-to-equity swap, and according to the contract at that time, 5% of the equity could be converted. 50 million yuan to buy 5% of GFN Group's equity is definitely a great loan. This person in charge, Zhuang Yuntian, can be called a strategic investor. Lambert looked at this information and praised continuously. Zhuang Yuntian never dreamed that the biggest promotion in his life was because he was accidentally deceived in the capital many years ago. Lambert has decided to include this company in the scope of his investment. For many companies, Being able to enter his investment plan means that the company is halfway through the road to success. 2 days later, Elmi hadn't waited for Lu Feng's call, and Mr. Zhang from the marketing department couldn't wait any longer, and started working in the dozen or so direct sale stores with the best sales. Early in the morning, the store had just opened, and the store manager began to take care of the morning meeting, standing in the specialty store and talking about the recent situation in the store, as well as the recent activities of various items. A man in his 40s walked in with 5 or 6 people. These people were all uniform in suits and leather shoes and looked extraordinarily high-end. The man instructed the person below, "Put that billboard at the door." After a while, the two took out a one-person high advertising sign and placed it in the most conspicuous position at the door. "Who asked you to put up advertising signs? This is Jiafeng's specialty store. No signs are allowed outside unless we have an event," the store manager asked the man. "We also received a notice that this billboard will be placed outside, and at the same time, we want the position of the First Brothers counter at the door," the man said indifferently. "You can pack up your things later." In addition to the dealer store, Jiafeng Electronics is the most popular product in the direct sale store near the door. Recently, pagers have always been placed at the door. "What, are you kidding me?" The store manager was instantly angry. He didn't bully people like that. If he really let him stand there, how could he sell it? He shouted at the clerk, "I won't let them move today. Who would dare to move?" "Don't yell at me, it's useless to yell, I tell you, we just moved, so what can you do? You sue up." The man put his hands in his pockets, and said arrogantly, "Don't say you sue the distribution company. Even if you sue the headquarters of the group, what can you do to Laozi? Don't ask, who do you rely on for food?" The manager's angry face turned green, and the people under the man's hands ran to the pager counter without saying a word and started moving things. Such a scene was staged not only in this store, but also in other general supermarket buildings, electrical appliances city and supply and sales buildings. There were countless onlookers, and some people laughed and said that the civil war in Jiafeng had begun. Please remember this book's first domain name. Yin Yang Agent mobile version reading website.